After The Master, Paul Thomas Anderson and Joaquin Phoenix have decided it's not them, but you, and doubled down with a second film. You're watching Beyond the Trailer's review of Inherent Vice.
Michael Z. Wolfman.
And Mickey Wolfman.
Mickey Wolfman
has vanished.
So where would I find him?
He's technically Jewish, but wants to be a Nazi.
And a girl don't necessarily want to get into difficulties with those folks.
You got a spare picture I could borrow?
Ah!
Well, maybe you're better off with the Nazis.
Whoa.
Are you all right?
Am I?
Are you?
Ordinarily, we're the ones asking the questions.
And your question is, which side am I on? Good question.
Yes, The Master turned out not to be quite so masterful. It did debut with intense buzz, fueled not just by Anderson and his stellar cast, not to mention breathtaking cinematography, but also because the film was said to be an expose of Scientology. And maybe it is, but most audiences couldn't tell you for sure. And while critics praised the film when it first opened, they quickly moved on to other films. And just like that, not only did The Master lose its buzz, but people weren't talking about it at all. It only became a topic of conversation once again when its star, Joaquin Phoenix, proclaimed that even though he was nominated for an Oscar for his role in The Master, the Academy Awards were and the public even quickly forgot about that, yet the Academy, not so much. Last year, when Phoenix gave another critically acclaimed performance in Spike Jonze's Her, he did not receive an Oscar nomination. In fact, Her was never much of an Oscar contender at all, only winning Best Original Screenplay for Jones. Was it because of the Phoenix factor? But Paul Thomas Anderson ain't afraid of no Phoenix factor. Besides, he'd already decided his first choice for the lead, Robert Downey Jr., was too old. And it seems a number of Hollywood stars aren't afraid of the Phoenix factor either, as Anderson has assembled yet another sterling cast. Josh Brolin, Reese Witherspoon, Benicio del Toro. Might their involvement counteract the supposed Phoenix factor with the Academy? And there's even a B team for extra support. Owen Wilson, Jenna Malone, Martin Short, Eric Roberts, and Anderson's wife, Maya Rudolph. They're all coming together as Anderson makes his own Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, complete with crazy author extraordinaire a la Hunter S. Thompson, the reclusive Thomas Pynchon. As with Thompson, this is the first adaptation of one of Pynchon's novels, although, unlike Thompson, Pynchon is not involved here. So if Anderson and Phoenix and company created something here so brilliant the Academy will have no choice but to recognize it, or is this basically The Master Part 2? This is some crazy shit. And unfortunately, Paul Thomas Anderson is still not totally back on track as a filmmaker. But I will say this about Inherent Vice. Joaquin Phoenix and Josh Brolin have the makings of a great TV show. I mean, forget Colin Farrell and Vince Vaughn. This is your True Detective 2, complete with philosophical ramblings that are almost impossible to decipher. However, with True Detective, there was at least one, if not several storylines, which were cut and dry, where you could tell what was going on, where you did get some answers. But that's not the case with Inherent Vice. It's almost impossible to tell what's going on, and therefore it's almost impossible to follow the movie, and therefore it's almost impossible to remain engaged, especially because of the running time. I mean, we're talking over 2 hours here with hardly any answers. And it's not just the mystery that's hard to understand, but also Joaquin Phoenix's dialogue. And I'm not sure if it's his performance or the sound mix, but it's a problem. And speaking of dialogue, when the film first starts, it's a little jarring because the dialogue, both in how it's written and performed, is stilted. But as soon as you recognize, and it doesn't take long, that this is a psychedelic film noir, you can actually marvel at the mishmash of tone that Paul Thomas Anderson has put into play here. And I think that's where the film is most successful, paying homage to this genre which had its heyday, of course, in the 1940s, where the dialogue was written and performed in a stilted manner. And I actually think that Inherent Vice calls to mind another modern, or somewhat modern, film noir, and that's Chinatown. And to be fair, Chinatown also is very hard to follow. But there's this one reveal in Chinatown, which of course the film is famous for at this point, which I think serves as a touchstone, which anchors the film, despite all the other murkiness. And Inherent Vice doesn't have that. It has no touchstone. But it has a lot of murkiness. You just have a general idea that evil is afoot, like that marijuana smoke is just an evil cloud. Now again, Joaquin Phoenix and Josh Brolin are very good in the film, quite good, some of the best work they've ever done. And there was this weird, I don't know if anybody else felt this way, but I sensed that Paul Thomas Anderson was trying to inject this homoerotic undertone to their relationship, which was funny and interesting at first, but since they never went anywhere with it, you just kind of wondered why it was introduced in the first place. As for the rest of the cast, it's indeed impressive, but everybody's in and out so quickly, I think it's hard for anyone to really make an impression. I also have to say, but Owen Wilson, I think, does a very nice job. I think he stands out the most besides Phoenix and Brolin in a role that's a little bit different for him, but yet still plays to his strengths. Now, the thing I wanted to mention is the female roles. Now, I totally understand that this is a film noir, and therefore female characters are kind of relegated to the background, and they have a set role to play in this genre, which is fine. It's the genre. But two things. One, I have to warn you, there is an incredible amount of female nudity in the film. Again, only female nudity, and that's a whole other conversation about the way sexuality is depicted in Hollywood, and there's never any eye candy for us ladies. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix has his shirt off a few times, but nothing like the full Monty that at least one actress is asked to do, and some quite graphic sex. Some of it lesbian sex. But I think that there was this one speech in the film that a female character gives, and this is my biggest problem, and that she's talking about how she feels used by this guy, and she feels like she might as well be a dog on a leash. And I was watching it, and I was like, this whole monologue would be a lot more powerful if you weren't delivering it while in the full Monty. So I think that was, a typical, but yet I think unfortunate, and at this point becoming dated choice by Paul Thomas Anderson. So Inherent Vice, it's such a shame because I thought the trailer looked so fantastic, and the trailer still is amazing, and it just seems that Inherent Vice is a much better short film than it is a long film. And by short, I mean the length of a trailer. But I recommend it to, Paul Thomas Anderson fans, Joaquin Phoenix fans, and Josh Brolin fans. I think you'll all find something to like here. There are little gems of performances, scattered throughout the film. But even as a Phoenix fan like myself, I did find it difficult to sit through. So that's my review of Inherent Vice. I got to see it at the New York Film Festival, a great festival here in the city, so I'm glad I got to see it in advance, and that's why my Gone Girl review was delayed. I was seeing this Saturday morning. I hope you enjoyed my review. Please leave your thoughts down below if you've seen Inherent Vice, and you can check out some more episodes right now.